Hello, and welcome to Alchemy Mindset. I'm your host, Anna Hastie, business mindset coach for women and a sound healer. If you are ready to become the most aligned, magnetic, and confident businesswoman you are worthy and deserving of being, then this show is for you. This is where I share everything from mindset, energy, and spirituality, and how to embody your future self in business and life. Sprinkle that with deeply relaxing sound healings and meditations, and you have the Alchemy Mindset podcast. Hit subscribe so you always get the latest episode. Now let's begin. Hello. Welcome back to Alchemy Mindset. I'm Anna Hastie, and you are listening to episode number 92, Parallel Lives and Returning to Oneness with Kerrie White. This is part 3 of the trilogy of episodes around the events, healing, and personal growth I experienced back in July and August when, sadly, my car was stolen and destroyed in a fire. Now, if you haven't heard the story around this or what this all means, head back to episode 90 and then you can chase it up with episode 91. So episode 90, I go through all the things that happened, the events and what happened afterwards, and why I needed energy healing within this situation and circumstance. Because I tell you, in the weeks following that event, I struggled deeply with the feeling like I didn't belong in Broome. Like I felt like I couldn't be here, couldn't be in my house, didn't like being outside, didn't want to be at the beach, didn't want to be at the shops, didn't want to be anywhere. I felt like I just didn't belong in Broome anywhere. I just didn't resonate with being in Broome's energy and space, and I wanted to leave. I remember telling Francois that I felt like I was stuck between two worlds, neither here nor there, but I was in one and out of the other. I don't know where I was. It was this horrible feeling. Then came my healing session with Kerrie, and everything became clear. I was actually experiencing the effects of a parallel life. I know. Weird, strange. Is this something that happens all the time? Oh my goodness. I personally have not experienced a parallel life shift within a healing. So I know this sounds crazy or unfamiliar, which is why I invited Kerrie back to explain and shed light on the powerful healing that brought me back to feeling like my whole self again. If you're not familiar with Kerrie White, I encourage you to listen to episode number 57, where she shares more about her work in the multidimensional quantum field. But in this episode, I also want to emphasize how crucial energy healing was for me during this major life shift. This episode is an eye-opener, and I'm sure it will have you reflecting on your own life and energy. So tell me. Send me a DM on Instagram or an email. Have you ever experienced anything like this in a healing session? Or do you have a similar story you'd like to share? Because I love hearing about other people's experiences. And honestly, I believe healings like this should be more common and more paramount for anybody's health and well-being. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this amazing, insightful conversation with Kerrie as she sheds light on that healing session that I had and why I was living a parallel life at that time. And without further ado, let's begin. Hello. Hi, Kerrie. Welcome back to Alchemy Mindset.
Thanks for having me, Anna. Lovely that I'm back again.
No, you're back again. This is so amazing. I always knew you'd come back. I just didn't know when or in what capacity or how it would roll, but welcome back to the show. For the listeners, if you haven't heard Kerrie's previous episode, I'll link it in the show notes below, but by all means have a tune in to find out who Kerrie is, what she does, and all the magic that she offers in energy and multidimensional quantum healing. Kerrie, I've got you on the show today to talk about and help unravel the situation I found myself in back in August, where I got on a healing session with you online, and I was like, Kerrie, my car was stolen. It was written off. And I feel like I just don't belong in this world right now. I feel like I'm neither here nor there. I feel like I'm in between two places at once. I know that this is happening for a reason, and it's part of a bigger shift and like quantum leap, if you want to call it. But what the hell is happening? I just feel like I can't be here in Broome anymore. And what unraveled in our healing session was that I was experiencing the effects of a parallel life, which I've never experienced before in a healing session. Like, I understand that there's parallel lives. I've done a lot of healing work with you and others and on myself around past life. That to me makes complete sense. But parallel life, like, I was like, whoa. So I would love you to share today what is all these timelines and lifelines and things like that for the listener, because I think for you and me, it's easily like we talk this, we live this, we understand it. But for anybody from the outside, it's like a parallel life. Like, how do I know if I'm living a parallel life? So I'd love you to begin. What exactly is a parallel life? Like, how do you identify that or know what that is?
Parallel life is the way I would identify it is I can feel that it's actually a version of you. So it contains the same energy field of you in this life. So I suppose it would have the same body, the same personality, the same kind of persona, but then there's almost what we'd even call a fragmentation of that. So again, even like past lives could be classed as a fragmentation as well. But the way to determine the difference would be this is a fragment of the whole of who you are in this life. Like it has the same journey that you've been on up until a certain point, and then it decided to split. And it's interesting because when we get this split, it's almost like a version of you with a lower consciousness, because again, like in a way, when we look at it, every part of us is almost like a fragment or a fragment of source itself. So to become even more fragmented means we're becoming even more separated from ourselves. And this is why it becomes so detrimental to our day-to-day lives when we have fragmented parts, because really we're going back to wholeness, to oneness. When we get a fragmented part, a part of us has become so indecisive. It's almost like it's a charged emotional field that creates almost like a separation of a part of you. And we can almost feel like a whole fragment of you kind of breaks off. But because it's such a small aspect of the wholeness of who you are in your life, your attention, your awareness still stays where you are. But this fragmented self, that'll kind of go off. And it'll start almost like going off on we could almost say it as if, if there's a radio station and you're on a certain frequency, and this becomes a certain frequency, 0.1, and you get those stations where it's like 90F.1 or whatever. It's almost like it becomes a 0.1 of your frequency. And then it kind of lives the same life, but then because it took a different kind of thought pathway, because it's usually created through trauma, which creates that separation, it'll start then going on its own little way. And you may, at the time when it happens, there could be so much happening, like an emotional event, a traumatic event, that you actually won't notice that a part of you separated off. And because your consciousness is going to stay with the majority of your consciousness, it then just becomes this fragmented part that almost feels like it's on its own little path somewhere. There will be still aspect of your highest consciousness that's connected to it. We could almost say insignificant to the consciousness of your life and all your purpose where you are right now. Then that kind of like starts just going off. And when these parts, because there are a lower consciousness and they're usually created from despair or lower emotions, then you can understand that that is going to not be a very good kind of energy that's going to be kind of manifesting for that version of you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was almost going to ask that, like, is that version of you going to be living, or that tiny aspect of you going to be living like a positive, happy, is having the best time of its life? Or is it going to be, as you said, in that lower vibrational state?
Very much low vibrational state. And this is where they become like a hindrance to us, because you'll start to feel not quite right. When they get to the point where you might actually start to notice it, this could be like years later. Do you know what I mean? Like this, because again, it could have just been playing out a similar life to what you're living, but it's going to be at a lower frequency because it's got hardly any of your connection, hardly any of your consciousness flowing into it. So it's going to start making a lot of, almost like lower thought form decisions along that path that can start to trip it up. And again, it will be based around the frequency of what caused the separation. So it's going to just start, the ones that I've tuned into myself that are fragmented, I was literally like heartbroken for parts of myself that went through what they went through because of that fragmentation. With myself, it was domestic violence and parts of me that, stayed or didn't stay, or, like, or I had a really bad experience that day that fragmented. And when I followed those pathways through, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I made the decisions I made and went my way.
Mm.
But that
Mm.
part of me that was like, oh my God, I don't
Mm.
know what to do. I don't know what to do. That kind of that fragmented, worried aspect that stayed in that, that relationship. Wow. And I was almost like, how can this even be me? How can this even,
Mm.
like, because I could see it was me. That's the thing. Like when I was tuning into this is how I actually got quite aware of it myself, because I was like, this is me, but it's me at the age I am now. And then when I fold it back, it was actually a fragmented part from when I was 28. When the trauma happened to me at 28, from 28 years, like, it was still the age I am now. It was aging as I was aging, but it took the path of staying with that abusive relationship. And it was not a good place. I was literally, there was actually so little life force in me in that life. It was like I was completely black.
Wow.
But there was a spark of me in there, and that's the thing, because this is what happens. It's like there's a spark of me in there that resonates with who I am here. But that spark of me in me was covered in darkness. So I had to literally, go in there and recover myself. And I had to actually clear and collapse that whole timeline of that version of myself had all those years that I've not noticed that it was gone from me. And that's kind of what we did with you as well. We kind of like, we had to
Yeah.
peel back and go, right, okay, this version of you has been experiencing all this stuff that's actually not in alignment with who you even are today. Like this doesn't happen to Anna, like this just doesn't happen to you. And
No.
that's the same when I was tuning into me. I'm like, why would I even make these decisions? Why does that even happen? Because again, it's coming from almost an irrational, worried, it's probably the most vulnerable aspect of you that just, and then that aspect that is making decisions. So it can be really chaotic. But the beautiful thing is we can integrate them back in and heal everything that they've been going through, which again can feel quite bizarre. Within my own story of that, when I actually brought back and healed down and collapsed the timeline, the 28-year-old version of me kept coming in. And it was like I couldn't even remember how to do things. It was really bizarre. So I had a day where I was like, why can't I remember how to do this? Oh, it's that version of me that never learned any of this stuff. It's that version of me
Mm.
that never had all the experience I had from 28 onwards in this life. And that version of me was clueless. So I was literally like, okay, this is not me. This is 28-year-old me. And actually, yeah, I didn't really know very much at 28. It was what I got to learn as well. It's like I didn't realize how much I didn't know until I connected to
Mm.
that version of me and was like, wow. So I then had to almost grow that version of me back up, integrate into the wholeness of me at my age. So
And
yeah.
how did that work? Like, how did you do that to bring them up to speed? Like, okay, sit down, babe. Just going to give you the the
It's
summary of
all
how we get here, or was it again just through like a healing in itself?
Yeah, so it's almost like it's how we would do the fragmented parts, which I actually do teach this in my level too. So fragmented parts, we can get inner child parts of us, and basically that's what it is. But most of the time, fragmented parts just become trapped in us. You'll have a traumatic experience or a highly charged emotional frequency, and they'll just be trapped in parts of you. And you don't actually get it very often that they become a parallel life. Like I've not
Mm.
found very many of these. So I would say I don't know how actually common it would be. Mainly when I tune into them, there'll be fragmented parts that are just almost like a picture or, like they're trapped in space and time and they're not actually traveling anywhere. They're just kind of stuck. But the part of you that almost goes into a parallel life that continues to live on, like I'm not sure of the exact, energetic frequency of that it's almost like it must just have so much more momentum of what's
Yeah.
next that it
Yeah.
actually just continues on. So I could say that would be the only thing that would distinguish it. But again, we heal it exactly the same way, really, by the acceptance of everything that that part is going through, acknowledging even how different and how separate it can feel from the current version of you. And again, just that empathizing with who you are in that moment, because it's still a part of you. And I think this is the important thing to realize here that even though there's parts of you that you can be like, oh my goodness, why would I have thought that? Why would I have done that? That we
Mm.
just have to have full compassion, empathy, and love them.
Mm.
And it is in that loving and that integration and full acceptance of who you are that then that part starts to integrate back. And I would say that when the 28-year-old version of me did fully come back in, and again, she was pretty stubborn. I feel back to how I was then. And she was pretty stubborn, which is why when I first did this session on myself, she didn't fully integrate. She kind of thought she knew it all. And I think we all go through
Mm.
that stage in our 20s where it's like, well, I'm 28 now, I know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was like that really kind of stubborn energy of she thought she knew what was best. And I had to just really just relax into that with, okay, I understand that. I understand what it's like to feel that way. And it was just that then kind of, I would almost say they kind of evaporate into the oneness then.
Yeah.
So it's like as they start to surrender into, okay, I actually am not 28 anymore. And then it came into the wholeness of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like in our session, like talking about that dissolving of that part of you back into yourself, like the integration. I remember, I mean, we called her poor sad Anna because she was just
Oh
living like the
yeah.
most horrific life. Like it was
Was.
pretty sad what she had endured. And if anything, and I think I'll try and keep my train of thoughts like without jumping around here. So
Yeah.
integrating her in, I remember like saying, "Hey babes, you got to come over on this side. Like it's far better over here. Like you're in the wrong place." And just putting my arm around her and saying, like just a small child, like it's okay, I've got you now. Like we're gonna feel better soon, and we're gonna feel like we're where we're meant to be, and it's okay. Like this stuff isn't gonna happen anymore, and just really just bringing her in and just going, "You're okay, you're safe now," rather than being unhappy with, oh, how could I possibly have done that? Or like, you poor bugger, like not having that, like you said, empathy, love, and I guess like it's like forgiveness in a way, or just acceptance and just bringing them back in. Like I remember putting my arm around her and saying, just come to this side. This side is the good side,
This
the good
side's where
life.
you need to be now. It's like you've got a little bit
Yeah.
lost, but come back to me. I think you even felt that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like just bringing her in and just saying, well, we're back to normal, and normal, but we're in the same place together. And the way I saw it was like whenever this shift happened, it was like train tracks, and then she's come back again. Like you identified that her experience. So this was the thing that got really trippy, because I said to Kerrie, like, I felt like I know that they were physical people that came in, but I feel like they were energy that came into my house. Like I still don't believe that it was a physical person that came into my house. I feel like it was energy that came into my house. And that's why I guess I don't feel so violated in a way, like as in like a physical presence had been in my house. And what you identified was that somehow how this all ever evolved is that they were elements of this lifetime. And what happened in her lifetime was the car actually got stolen. The car was stolen in sad Anna's lifetime. And it somehow translated into this lifetime as well. But her experience was far more horrific. Like she was attacked by these people, and I could sense that. Like I could feel like you sensed that she was hit over the head. I could feel that too. Felt like there's still like this stranglehold around her neck. Like she had a real ordeal with these people. I got the lucky end. They just came in and out, right? But again, I still felt like it was almost in the way I pictured it. It was like my car was there and then it just evaporated. Like it didn't actually go anywhere. But it did because Francois saw it physically down the road, burnt in the bushes. But that's how I've sort of associated this whole entire experience.
And that's kind of what happened then. The description of the train tracks is perfect because this is how it's like they would have been running parallel. So the closer they get, then it starts to have this parallel that could overlap each other. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when people might even experience, when they're like, oh, why do I all of a sudden feel really depressed? Or why is everything going wrong today? And then they could be okay again. But again, it could be like these train tracks of those parallel lives that could start to overlink and overlap.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with you. But it's almost like with you, your higher consciousness needed that to be fully processed because sad Anna was having such a horrific time that her experience was dragging you down. Like, as that's
Mm.
like that fragment of your soul that was trapped in that experience. She was just getting weighed down with all that stuff that was happening to her. And it's almost like the highest version of you were like, we've got to somehow get this healed, but we have to let Anna know that it's here. And the only way to do it was then to allow that crossover. So it's almost like you had to almost rescue her. And again, this is how safe you are in your current life, though, that you completely didn't have any interaction with those people. You got
No.
to completely miss that. Whereas sad Anna, like she had all that, but she had to be rescued because it was almost like with that traumatic experience, for her to continue on with that, it would have really dropped your vibration. And you were in that zone where you're like, you're traveling up, you're traveling into
Yes.
more and more higher consciousness. And there was no way a fragment of you could remain in that trauma. It's almost like that, we say in the radio signal. The
Mm-hmm.
signal so close together that it's just a tiny little dial switch to one side and boom, it's in this life. So there's so much going on in that realm.
Oh, and even just hearing you say that, like we identified that she'd been having a pretty rough time in Broome anyway. And what I was feeling at that moment in time was like, I just wanted to get out of Broome. Like I couldn't be here anymore. Like my time was done. The egg timer had gone off and I was like, we're done. Broome, we're done. Like my energy, what I've received from you, what I've learned from you, what I've gained from you is done and I'm ready to move and I've got to get out of here. And what you had identified is that this was basically literally the nail on the head. Like it was like done, enough. I can't be here anymore. I want to get out. And yet, as you're saying, as I've heard you just say, then, if I'm shifting and up leveling my own consciousness into this new realm or this new era or this new phase of my life, she's still like that little anchor that's pulling me back. But it's her experience is so strong that I was getting stuck in there. Like I literally said, I feel like I've got one leg in this world and one leg in another world and nothing feels right. So once she was integrated, I finished our session and I walked out the room and I was like, fuck, I feel better. I feel so much better now. I feel free. I
Yeah.
feel free. Like instantly. It wasn't like a day. I mean, obviously, I began to feel more and more myself as the days progressed. But after that session, I kid you not, I just felt so much more myself again. Like everything was going to be okay. Everything was fine. I guess I had that understanding of what was going on, but I'd felt the energy shift and change to be able to identify that this is me being in my normal. What
Yeah.
that was not normal and I wasn't going crazy. And I think this is one question I had for you because it went through my mind was, how do people know that they're experiencing something like this? And maybe it's not necessarily parallel life, like, other things that you work on for people, such as energies, entities, all those kind of stuff, energetic stuckness, if you want to just label it as a broad term. But like I thought to myself, if I didn't know this was something energetic and that I needed energy to complement everything I've gone through, to work through, to heal and resolve this situation, would I have gone to a doctor and what would they have given me to just deal with this?
Yeah.
Like, how do I translate this to someone in the medical profession that I feel like I'm neither here nor there and I'm just not in my body anymore? I don't feel right. Like, how do people live their life and not realize that actually energy healing is probably what they need more than another medication or something to numb this pain? Like, I could only imagine turning to alcohol, and I don't drink, to just get me out of this situation. But how do people not know this? Is what went through that? How would you not know that this is something that that isn't something that a doctor could fix or help you with?
I mean, when I feel into that, it's almost like I feel like a doctor would be like, well, you're bipolar. You need to be on this medication now. And
Mm.
again, maybe that is what a lot of bipolar is. There's two different minds going off in two different ways, and which one is stronger? I mean, that could be a very real aspect about why some kind of bipolar might even manifest in people. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not integrated because it's like a magnet. Your soul wants to come to wholeness. It wants to come to oneness. Like that's literally
Yeah.
why we're here. So eventually, no matter what, these fragmented parts, they could take weeks, months, years, but they're gonna want to come back to integrate. But when they want
Mm.
to come back to integrate, they're going to create a little bit of a ripple of an imbalance. And this might be a good way to be able to determine, like, I've been traveling okay now. I've been doing a lot of spiritual practices, or maybe their health's improved and they're starting to feel really good. And this can be a key for it where some people are like, but I was doing so well and then this happened. And it's almost like what you want to look at is your frequency has been increasing, which is beautiful. So then you become a stronger magnet for oneness, for wholeness. These little bits of your fragments here, of these parallel lives or even past lives as well, they will then want to be integrated because they know that you're coming back to oneness. So then you become this magnet for wholeness. But as you can feel into those little fragments, they're going to be holding these frequencies that have emotional and mental charges in them. When that emotional and mental charge wants to come back into the oneness of who you are, you have to process it. And that can be literally when, like stuff starts to go wrong in your life, or you could deem it as going wrong. But really, it's almost like, okay, there's a part of me that wants to integrate. And this is why I feel like practices such as meditation and contemplation, that when something is going wrong, you don't just fall into the spiral of it, that you pause, you take a breath, and you're able to start to really feel into it. Like, okay, I was going really well. My vibration has been increasing. Why is this happening to me now? Do I just need to love more of myself here? Is there parts of me that weren't loved or that were separated from me that need a return? And very likely it's going to be a yes. So this is just knowing that when you are on a journey of, getting your health really well, you're increasing your vibration by doing lots of exercise and meditation and spiritual work, that you are going to get the blips, but they're only because you're bringing in a oneness. And again, a lot of people are put off by the journey of that because they're like, I've been working at this forever and this and now is something else. But again, that's kind of what you've got to almost look at yourself as a magnet. And the stronger you get, the more healthy you get, you're going to magnetize back these little bits that need your help. And it's only because you're conscious that the capacity that you can now process that it has came back. Because if you're not at the capacity that you can process it, sometimes it just doesn't come back. And then that's when we get a lot of then the past life stuff comes in. Because past life energy is the same in a way that it's stuff that you were unable to process emotionally, mentally, physically from a different lifetime that then just became a locked up bit of energy that is just now floating around unprocessed. So it's kind of like knowing that we can create that in this lifetime. And if we don't process it, we carry all the baggage from all the other stuff we didn't process, plus the current life stuff to the next life. And then it ends up that then you're a little baby and a child that then has to have even more stuff.
Yeah. Then we have to go through the lifetime of that stuff plus everything else that we've been carrying forwards, right? Yeah.
So we're in a process now. I almost feel like a lot of us in this generation that we're in now, we are the ones that are unpacking. So the generation before us, I mean, you actually even find that maybe even your parents are starting to unpack a lot of this, and they'll call it it's almost like I remember my dad says many times, oh, I just keep having all these memories, just random memories of what people said to me when I was younger. And I was like, Dad, you're doing a life review. I was like, just contemplate with it, let it process through you. Because all of us now, because there's so much light coming to the earth, we're actually being like guided into, you need to process what you've not looked at. If you don't process it, then it's going to accumulate. And humanity has been accumulating too much over too many different generations now. And this is kind of why we're in this real kind of stuck where there's more health conditions and mental illness than ever before. And all it is a highlight in the fact that we haven't fully processed what we've experienced. And literally, as a soul in a human form, we're here to process our experience. If we don't, it starts to trip us up. Like literally, that's the reason we're here, to fully process the experiences that we move through. If we choose to block it away, or like, it's that energy of, oh, we'll just hide that in the closet, we'll sweep it under the rug. We won't talk about that. We won't look at that again. That is creating all that noise in the background, and then it creates that sickness. And it can manifest in many different ways. Again, when I even see people with different diagnoses, it's almost like the same kind of liberation to health is usually the same pathway. Deal with that you couldn't process, and you will get better.
Yeah. That's so interesting with what you're saying about processing everything that we're in this lifetime, and that we are a generation that's opening up that doorway. And the way I see my own journey within this is that what I work on myself is not only shifting and changing the timelines and the life that my daughters will have, but also further back, like I'm healing my parents and my grandparents and their grandparents and generational lines back that way. And then if we're looking at like past lives, then I see like I'm influencing those lives and all those connected around those lives. So it becomes like this massive spider web of healing backwards and forwards, which I feel like is very powerful. Like it's such a gift to be able to do that in a way where it's, yes, I'm working on myself and that's amazing. Like, don't we all want to work on ourselves to be the best that we can possibly be? But I'm also gifting this backwards and forwards and sideways, I guess you could say as well, because Francois is also being influenced by what I receive, that it's extending out as a big spider web of healing for everybody.
Yeah, it's like we're healing the body of humanity, and you can think of each one of us, we're almost like a cell within that body. And when every single cell starts to kind of heal itself, it creates a ripple effect. And this is why almost become the antidote for the whole. When we have those aha moments, when we have those shifts into our own oneness, we become a signature within the whole. And again, like when you think of humanity, what is humanity? It is a full fragmentation, like it's a fragmentation of a great whole. So we can feel how we're all going back into that oneness.
Yeah. And I feel like this is something that's just comes out through when I offer my sound baths, is that we are coming back to ourselves. Like we need to come back to ourselves without all the distractions of whatever we've done on our day-to-day journey in life. Come back to one to receive this healing, but knowing that then you're a beacon of light, as I like to say, as you go out in the world, and this is having a ripple out effect.
We are literally heading into this phase of Aquarius now where, like everything's changing into self-mastery. And this is where you don't look to other people so much to help you. Yes, you can have healers guide you through stuff. And that's why when I do my healing sessions, I very much like to get someone in tune with where I'm at and guide you through it. So you get to learn and empower yourself through the whole process of liberating yourself. Basically,
Yeah.
I'm just, I like to be like that guide within that process, because we're all going into mastery. And it's like mastering the self, mastering like our own emotions and our own thoughts. And when we start to become into mastery, we're not looking for someone to rescue us. We start to empower ourselves. And then empowering the self then can be, I'm going to look at all the stuff I've not processed, because that then will empower me. Like what was I scared to look at in the past that now I'm empowered to look at now? So we're heading into a whole new chapter of humanity for these next, I think it's like 20 years now in that vibration that we're going to be moving into.
Yeah. And like you said, for anything, and we can witness this through the world, there has to be, when there is a shift or something like that, there is that ripple out effect, and it may cause chaos and it may cause like upheaval, but it's almost like you have to shift that out to allow more light through and to have these breakthrough moments, to have these healings, to have these integrations, because as you said, we're all coming back into this oneness, this wholeness. And I keep reminding myself, like, this whole experience for me wasn't that it was happening to me, it was happening for me. Like, as soon as those police officers walked through the door and said, "Are you the owner of this vehicle? It's been stolen. It's now burnt, whatever, burnt out." I was like, okay, this is part of something. Like, I'm not, yes, I know I'm going to have to integrate all this. I'm going to have to go through all these processes and emotions and feelings and everything else. But I know this is actually part of something, and I'm not completely flipping out over it. I have acceptance of this. And I think that's why I haven't had that feeling of like I've seen it before on Facebook community groups where people just rip through and say the most horrible and violent things and thoughts around what they would do if they caught that intruder, which, yes, it's not nice to have someone come into your house uninvited in that way. But I just had no feelings towards them. I'm like, I have nothing towards you guys. Like, there's nothing. I know you did this and it's wrong, but there's nothing there. I know that this is part of what's something bigger that's happening for me, and I accept that. And to see it in that light was also a bit weird. Like, part of me was going, are you sure you're not going to get revved up and really angry and really like, how dare this happen, But yeah, I feel like when we have these experiences, like you said, that contemplation and the reflection, the meditation is, this is happening for me for a reason. And I feel like sometimes that is a really hard thing to understand when we have dealt with some really big traumatic experiences and situations in our life.
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost like you can see how like it happened with so much, in a way, like the most you were the most protected way it could overcome, like all
Mm,
needed to integrate. Like you had no interaction with them, and the first you found out was someone knocking, the police who were safe people told you. And by the time it's like the police are involved, it's like, oh, well, this is already safe now. Like, so it's almost like your interaction with it was the most easiest way it could have unfolded for you. And again, we could always be like, well, why did my car have to go? But again, the car was insured. You can get a new car from the insurance. It was a little bit of, again, like, it's like that little bit of a hiccup that we can experience.
mm.
It's like how much learning has came from that, how much integration, how much wisdom now have you been able to hold from that experience. And wow, was it a gift? And,
Absolutely.
and then we did some work on them guys as well, didn't we?
We did, yeah, in our second set. Oh, well, I think in the original session you said that there was like a karmic relationship that had to be healed between me and the main person. And then that all sort of got kind of resolved within that session. And then in our most recent one, because the police caught two people in regards to the whole theft, and that we just did a bit of a healing around me feeling safe within my house again and within myself, and not having, and sort of, I can't remember exactly what we did around these guys, because I did do my own meditation and forgiveness prayer, because I realized that actually, while I didn't necessarily have big, strong feelings about them or to them, I still felt like it was I guess that I felt like there needed to be healing or some sort of, what's the word? Not resolve, but resolution between this situation between me and these other people. And that's where I was like, Anna, this is where you have to do your forgiveness prayer. You have to do your ho'oponopono, because yes, it's hard for you to say, but they did wrong to me. But the whole process of that is making right twice. And you're the one that's empowered and of the vibration where you can heal that. They can't. They're never going to come to you and say, please ask for forgiveness. I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you. They're not going to do that. You have to do that for them and for yourself. So I did that. And then I did another meditation about calling my power back, because I felt like in that moment, there was a part of me just around the idea of having to like maybe be in front of them if I had to go to court to give a statement or something. But I just realized that actually there was an element of me that had lost a bit of my own power within that whole situation, and I called that back. But then I can't remember exactly what we did in the second session around all of that, like just feeling that little bit more safer within my house, like bringing safety back into my vibration. Yeah.
Yeah, there was so much we had to work on there, wasn't there, with
Yeah.
bringing all that back. And again, like you say, certain people we have to heal within our own healing. They're
Mm.
never going to do it. They're never going to do the work. So it's almost like when we clear our own karma and our own involvement in it, we're clearing such a ripple of that through, like it's almost like maybe that's changed that ripple on those two guys' life now.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do. Like, I hope that in some way something happened that will help them in some small way, maybe even a big way, of a realization that their life path and journey doesn't have to be like that, that they have more options and opportunities if they make good choices, or if they have that awareness, or if they allow that to come through. Yeah, because no doubt they've come from a situation and a life and a lifestyle and a conditioning of a lower vibrational frequency that's led them to think that it's fun to take other people's car for a joyride and then go torch it in the bush. So
Exactly. And
yeah.
it's almost like that disrespect for other people's lives and property as well.
Mm,
Again, it's like that lack of, I mean, again, it's disconnection. Disconnection with only
mm,
disconnection within themselves could see that it was, like it was even possible to take someone else's, car. And again, that's why it's like we have to integrate back into connection again. And
mm,
this is where I even say to people, like people can do the most horrible things, but hate creates more hate. Anger creates more anger. The only antidote is we have to love those that have disconnected, those that have chosen a pathway that is on disconnection, and it just creates more disconnection from themselves and others. We have to link the bridge back to them to
mm.
love. And it doesn't mean they get away
Yeah,
with what they did. It just
no.
means on an energetic level, we have full empathy that this soul has become separated from themselves. Because really, you can only do stuff that is out of alignment with other people if you're separated from your own self. Because you
Mm,
know yourself, like the more you're connected to yourself, the more oneness you feel in yourself, you don't want to do anything to harm anyone. And you would never
No.
take from anyone because it's like taking and harming yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And I think one thing you've said there is like hate breeds more hate, anger breeds more anger. That's why I think I felt no need to express that, even though these people did wrong by me. I felt like I don't need to go and do a massive torrent of like anger and hate and whatever
Mm.
against people or a certain, I don't know, I'm just going to say like a certain kind of person, blah, blah, blah. Like I have no need to express that. Like there is nothing in me that can express that. I see no value in expressing that. And I think that's, for me, that was really profound as well. Like just to sense and tune into this whole entire scenario that was going on. And it just still blows my mind, like when I come back to it, how everything, I knew within myself, as soon as it happened, it was like, I better book in with Kerrie, better book in for a healing, because
Yeah.
that's how I see my life. I see my life as being the integration of these three amazing aspects of myself. I'm physical, I'm mental, and I'm like energetic. And it's important to bring it all in to integrate the whole. Like I did the mindset work with Nikki, and she really supported on helping to regulate my nervous system and help me understand this shift and change that I was moving into. But I knew on another level that there is energy that has to be shifted here, because this is not normal for me. And I'm so glad you've come on today to talk about that, because I'm sure it's going to pique other people's curiosity and help, I hope as well, like you said, through meditation or contemplation, reflection, that maybe gets them to question their own health and well-being and how they're feeling and how they interact with things, and perhaps seek out an energy healing of some sort to bring themselves back into this wholeness, integrate whatever it is that they need to, or I guess, and also in other words, like just make peace with experiences in life and things like that. And for you to explain like how this all relates into the bigger journey of life that we're on, I think it's just so helpful, because I'm sure if I'd walked around town saying, oh yeah, I was experiencing parallel life, don't worry, I'm fine, people would be like, what the hell is she talking
Yeah.
about?
And that's something, it's such a like it's a very, like it takes you to be really at a higher awareness to kind of spot what's going on.
Mm,
Doesn't mean that you wouldn't notice it if you were, like if we could say your day-to-day person, they're going to be something just doesn't feel right with me today,
mm,
or this doesn't feel like my life. Like it is kind
yeah.
of, that is a good way to kind of interpret that something needs to be processed here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just feel like the message that I would like to say is tune in and ask yourself, is this normal for you? Is this how you're wanting to feel? And explore, and just be curious and open and explore other modalities, other ways of healing, other forms of healing, because it's going to help you in the long run to, like you said, come into wholeness, to, I want to say, like, meet your soul's journey, to do the work in this lifetime. Otherwise, you've got to pack it in a bag and take it into the next one. And gosh, sometimes you don't get to take excess baggage, right? So luggage allowance gets costly.
It does. And it gets costly on our health. And then again,
Yes,
we always look at the body as well. Like, what is the body kind of like with all these different health conditions that people can have? And again, this is even mental health. It's like, what is my body trying to tell me here? Like, what is it trying to show me? What is it trying to communicate with me?
absolutely. Yeah.
And enough, I feel like everything can be healed because literally all it is, we are a manifestation of energy, and that energy comes out in frequencies. So it's just, I think I've explained this before. It's almost like you could look at like how something like music, if it, the chord's not tightened, or, it's a little bit out of tune, it doesn't play right. So you can
Mm-hmm.
literally just look at parts of you that have held a different frequency. It's created just something that's become out of tune. And we just need to put that back into balance. And again, the only way to do that sometimes is just to look it right on in the face and be like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing. But what is this? Where is it even coming from? Is it me today? Is it me yesterday? Where even is this? And as soon as we start to ask questions, even if we don't feel like we're getting an answer, the
Mm-hmm.
answer will start to come. It almost starts to unpack naturally when we start asking questions about things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all starts with questions, doesn't it? Like if
It
you ask
does.
yourself a very good question, you're going to get a very good answer. So
Yeah.
yeah, when you listen, when you listen, when you listen, when you listen. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so do you reckon we've addressed everything that we've needed to?
I think you wanted to go on. Did you want to talk about quantum leaps and then a shamanic death as well, or?
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
Well, with the quantum leaps, I think you wanted to just know, like, how would we even look at that? How would we even define that?
Yeah,
And
okay.
again, we can
Yeah.
almost even say quantum leaps can happen with just a big aha moment. So when you're going through a spiritual journey and you're having, sometimes it can even happen from a healing, like when you would have had a big, like, oh my goodness, I get it. It's like that big aha moment where it's like, oh, all the jigsaw pieces seem to come together.
Yeah.
How I would kind of bring in a quantum leap of a feeling, it would be an aha where it's like everything starts to make sense so much that that level of integration of wisdom and knowingness almost jumps you from one place within your reality to another vibration. And we could almost look at that as a dial on the radio station as well, where it's like you are just playing at this vibration, and then it's like, oh my goodness, that all makes sense. That links to this, that links to that. And you have this huge aha, and then all of a sudden you're vibrating at this completely new frequency that can never be changed again. You can only go up from there. And that's those big quantum leaps. And they completely feel like they change you from one moment to the next. You feel completely different from that epiphany. So that's what I would kind of explain as a quantum leap to come through. And this can happen a lot within healing sessions. So you have that huge
Mm,
epiphany, and then your whole emotional process and your mental processes come from a different level of consciousness. And I feel like this is very even similar to what you'd even call the shamanic death. The shamanic death is almost like it focuses more on the part that was, the part that had to die almost, the part that was that vibration, what we say that was there, that we shifted up to up here. Then there's that bit doesn't even need to exist anymore. And it starts to, like it doesn't need to exist. So that shamanic death is the death of the old self, the version of you that was at that different vibration that had those patterns of maybe behavior, thought forms, and emotions that then just doesn't need to be there anymore. And it becomes
yeah.
like a death because it doesn't need to exist anymore.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
they're very similar. I would say they're very similar, but it's almost like when I think into quantum leap, I'm more focusing on the actual boom, I'm over here, and this is all my new integration. When I think of the word of shamanic death, I'm almost reconciling everything that was the old self that is now gone.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would make sense. And actually, when you're talking about the quantum leap as well, like quantum leaps, as you've just said, can be big or large depending on what you've worked on in that energy sense. So I know just that I think what you said, that realization or the epiphany. Like I
Yeah,
think there's been plenty of times I've had healings with you, and I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense now. There's a
yeah,
little leap in that sense. There's a little leap. There's a little leap, and then sometimes they're bigger ones, and then sometimes they're smaller ones. But the
yeah.
shamanic death is literally letting go of that old identity, that old way of being in a sense, and that you're shifting into a new integration of self.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
almost like you don't even really need to even hold too much attention on the shamanic death because that just becomes
Mm.
a natural process that just falls away when you just fit
Yeah.
into the integration of the wisdom.
Yeah. I feel like when you talk about that, just letting it fall away, I almost feel like here in Broome, we have lots of palm trees, and you watch how palm trees grow. There's always something from the center, and then the old palms that are on the outer side, they're the ones that fall down and fall out and they die, and then the ones that fall off, so that the new shoots, everything's always coming up and out, up and out,
Yeah.
up and out. So that's what I'm kind of visualizing there, is like this plant, and as the old parts are falling away, it's the old leaves that are just, or the old palm branches that are falling off the tree. So it keeps going up and up and up and up.
Yeah. And it just keeps growing. And that's
Yeah,
the perfect analogy of it there.
yeah, absolutely. Kerrie, I just want to say thank you so much for coming onto the Alchemy Mindset podcast to talk all about this experience that I've gone through, and to really shine some clarity and some more meaning and understanding as to what parallel lives are, how they happened, past lives, quantum leaping, shamanic deaths, and the importance of coming back to wholeness and self in all this amazing shifts and times that we're experiencing here on this planet and as human beings. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for tying in this trilogy of episodes to basically help explain everything. So to the listener who heard the first episode, I'm not going mad. This makes perfect
Yes.
sense.
We can
It's,
always make sense of stuff when we're
yeah,
willing to look at
absolutely.
all angles. So yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. So thank you so much. How can the listeners get a hold of you? Is there anything that you wanted to share with them?
So yeah, you can get a hold of me on my website, which is multidimensionalquantumhealing.com. And it's just all basically one big long word when you type it in. And I'm also on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm not massive on social media. You can also send me an email if you have any questions at kerrie.white@outlook.com. But yeah, all my sessions are on my website, and you can book in by my calendar if you want to work on, see if you've got any parallel lives yourself, any past lives, and any current stuff that's kind of, just weighing you down. We're looking to liberation and oneness. So yeah, and that's where you can reach me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Kerrie. I so greatly appreciate you being here. I'm sure there'll be another session, another time that I'll have you come back to talk about more amazing energy healing, multidimensional quantum healing, all those amazing things that you are so talented and gifted and specialize in. Have a fabulous day, and thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. Please rate and review this podcast so that it can continue to thrive and reach more listeners. I love to know who my listeners are, so please screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at Anna F. Hastie. And I look forward to connecting with you in the next episode.